I wasn't expecting visitors. It was supposed to be just another quiet Sunday evening, maybe pizza, maybe reruns of Gold Rush with Mason. But the moment I opened the front door, I knew something was off. Vanessa stood in the driveway in full makeup and heels, like she was heading to a cocktail party instead of coming home. Her smile wasn't warm, it was smug. The kind of smile that made my stomach tighten before I even saw who was behind her. Then I did. Some guy tall, overly tanned, maybe 45, leaned back on a chrome-plated motorcycle like he was posing for a magazine cover. His arms were slung casually around two boys who looked about 10 or 11, both dressed like they just walked out of a department store catalog. None of them looked uncomfortable. Not even a little. Behind me, I felt Mason shift. His small hand gripped the side of the door, then slowly slid around my arm, clutching tight. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice low. Vanessa's heels clicked against the concrete as she stepped closer, waving one perfectly manicured hand toward the man like she was introducing a guest at a wedding. "This is Jordan," she said cheerfully, as if I was supposed to know who that was. "And these are his boys, Tyler and Zach. They'll be staying with us for a while." I blinked. "What?" Mason's fingers tightened. Vanessa didn't miss a beat. "Just until they get settled. Jordan's house is in escrow and his lease ran out. It's just temporary." "You're kidding," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew she wasn't. Vanessa didn't kid about things like this. She bulldozed through life with this weird confidence, like anyone who pushed back was just being difficult. Jordan smiled. "Thanks, man. Appreciate it." He didn't look at me when he said it. Just patted one of his kids on the shoulder like we were all already roommates. Mason leaned closer, his face half hidden behind my arm. "Dad, who are they?" I looked down at him, and that's when I felt it. Not just confusion or disbelief, betrayal. Something inside me snapped tight, like a cord being pulled just a little too hard. Mason didn't get scared easily, but he was scared now. And I knew he was picking up on it too, the shift in the air, the way Vanessa wouldn't meet my eyes. "You're just going to drop this on us?" I asked, quieter now, almost flat. "Without asking? Without even telling me?" Vanessa tilted her head. "Greg, it's my house too." That was the line. The one she always used when she wanted to do something reckless. It meant, shut up and deal with it. Mason stepped fully behind me now, pressing into my side. "I don't want them to stay," he whispered. I nodded once, my jaw tight. "Go to your room, buddy," I said gently. "I'll be up in a bit." He didn't move at first. Just stared at Jordan and the boys like they were intruders, which they were. But then he finally turned and walked away, not saying another word. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. "Vanessa," I said, staring at her. "We need to talk. Now." She crossed her arms and looked amused. "Oh, do we?" "Yeah, we did." Because whatever this was, this stunt she just pulled, it wasn't going to end the way she thought it would. Not this time. We didn't make it to the living room. Vanessa leaned against the kitchen counter like she was waiting for me to say something dumb so she could roll her eyes and walk away. Jordan stood in the hallway, arms crossed, acting like some innocent bystander. His kids had already wandered toward the den, poking around like they owned the place. I kept my voice low. "You invited a man and his children into my home without saying a word. Do you even hear yourself?" Vanessa scoffed like I was being dramatic. "Oh, please. Don't act like this is some betrayal. You're overreacting, Greg." That's when I felt Mason's presence again. I turned. He had crept halfway down the stairs, watching from the railing. His face was pale. "Go back upstairs, bud," I called gently. But he didn't. He stepped down another stair, clutching the rail. "Mom," he said quietly, "why did you call me emotional baggage?" The whole room froze. Vanessa blinked. "What?" "I read your texts," Mason said, voice steady but tight. "You said I was too much. That Jordan's boys were easier. That I ruined the mood in the house." He looked at her like he didn't even recognize her. And suddenly, I didn't either. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. "You shouldn't be snooping through my phone? That's all you have to say?" I snapped. "You're not even denying it?" "I was venting," she yelled. "God, Greg. Everyone needs to vent sometimes. Do you know how hard it is living in this pressure cooker you call a house?" I stared at her, stunned. "You mean the house I pay for?" "Wow," she said with a dry laugh. "There it is. You always pull that out like a badge. Like a big man who brings home the bacon. That's all you've ever been good at, playing provider and pretending it's love?" My hands clenched at my sides. Jordan stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. "Let's all just calm down," he said with a forced grin. "The kids are watching." Vanessa whirled on him. "Don't you start." Mason stepped off the last stair and crossed the room, walking straight to my side. He didn't say anything, just took my hand. He hadn't done that in a while, not since he was a little kid. But he was doing it now. That was enough for me. Vanessa, I said, steady and sharp, I don't care who Jordan is to you. I don't care about his kids. But you are not going to gaslight me in my own home. Not in front of my son. Gaslight, she sneered. Please. You just don't like that I finally found someone who actually treats me like I matter. Jordan held up his hands. Maybe we should. No, I cut in. You should stay out of this. You're a guest here, whether you realize it or not. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You think you're going to scare me with that tone? I've put up with your moods for years. I've earned the right to make decisions in this house. I turned to Mason. Go pack a bag, okay? Just enough for a couple nights. Are we leaving? He asked. No, I said. She is. I'll get a hotel if I have to, but I'm not going to let this circus destroy you. Vanessa laughed again, short, bitter, defensive. You think you can just kick me out? I said quietly, that I'm done playing dumb. I think the woman I fell in love with is gone. And I think I've let her drag us both through enough. Mason's grip tightened. I looked at him, then back at her. This house isn't a hotel for whatever midlife crisis you're chasing. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. Because for once, she wasn't the one in control. I waited until the house fell silent. Jordan had taken his boys back to their SUV and driven off with some half-muttered promise to figure things out later. Vanessa was upstairs, probably packing or plotting, hard to say. Mason stayed by my side the entire time, shadow quiet, unsure whether to speak or stay small. I needed to show him something. Not to hurt her, but to prove he wasn't crazy. We walked into my bedroom. I knelt down by the side table, reached into the bottom drawer, and pulled out the thick manila envelope I'd hidden weeks ago. Sit down, I said gently. Mason did, perching on the edge of the bed. I didn't want to show you this unless I had to, I told him, holding up the envelope. But I think you need to know that you're not wrong. And I'm not crazy either. Inside was everything. Every flag I'd ignored. Screenshots of texts between Vanessa and someone saved as Jay, who I now knew was Jordan. Receipts for lunches she claimed were work meetings. Instagram DMs I pulled from a synced tablet she forgot to log out of. There was even a printout of an Uber ride she took at midnight from our street to an address 3 towns over, the same night she told me she stayed late at yoga. I handed it to Mason carefully. You don't have to look, I said. But I want you to know I'm not making this up. He flipped through the pages slowly, his eyes scanning the texts. His jaw clenched. A few times he stopped, stared, then kept going. I knew it, he whispered. I knew she was lying to us. My heart ached. I sat down beside him. I didn't want to believe it either, I said. Footsteps pounded down the stairs. Vanessa's voice cut through the hallway like a blade. What the hell are you doing with my stuff? I stood up just as she stormed into the room. That's not your stuff, I said evenly. That's mine. I've been documenting everything for weeks. Because I knew eventually you'd pull something like this. Jordan appeared behind her again, back already, his expression tight, eyes flicking to the folder in Mason's hands. Vanessa pointed at it. You've been spying on me? I didn't flinch. I've been protecting myself. And our son. You're unbelievable, she hissed. You think this means anything? Jordan stepped forward, holding out a hand. Greg, maybe let's not do this in front of Mason. Mason stood up, shoulders squared. I want to be here. Vanessa tried to walk past me toward him, but I stepped between them. No, I said firmly. You don't get to use him as cover anymore. Her face twisted. You're going to regret this. I looked her dead in the eye. No. You are. Mason came beside me and grabbed my hand again. I want to stay with Dad, he said quietly. Vanessa froze. She reached toward him. Mason, baby, I stepped forward. Touch him again, and I call the cops. Jordan pulled her back. Let's go, he muttered. Vanessa didn't fight this time. She just stared at me, furious and shaken, and for the first time unsure of how the story would end. I already knew. Because now I had the file. And the truth wasn't hers to control anymore. It was 3 days of silence before she came back, this time with backup. A black and white cruiser pulled up just after noon. I was on the porch, fixing the broken rail Mason had tripped on last week. When I saw Vanessa step out of the back seat with an officer beside her, I already knew how this was going to go. She wore jeans and a cardigan, minimal makeup, her hair in a low ponytail, the kind of look someone wears when they're trying to look soft. Fragile. Like the victim. Mr. Walker, the officer asked as he approached. I'm Officer Grant. Ms. Taylor requested an escort to retrieve her belongings. She feels unsafe, Vanessa added quickly. Her voice wobbled, almost believable. I didn't want any conflict. I nodded slowly. Right? That's why you brought a cop. It's standard protocol, sir, the officer said, calm and polite. She has a right to access her property. We're just here to keep things peaceful. I opened the door. Be my guest. Vanessa walked in like she still owned the place, dragging a duffel bag behind her and clutching a small jewelry box to her chest. Her eyes flicked around the room like she expected something to jump out at her. She started gathering clothes from the upstairs closet while the officer lingered by the front door. I didn't follow her. I just sat in the kitchen, sipping cold coffee, waiting for the next act. And right on cue it came. She reappeared holding a small wooden case from my dresser. That's mine, I said, standing up. She clutched it tighter. It was a gift. It's my grandfather's watch. She looked at the officer, trying for innocent. We both used it. He knows that. I walked over, firm but slow. You want to take your shoes and dresses, fine. But you're not taking my family's history to prove some point. The officer stepped between us, held out his hand. Ma'am, I'll need to check that. Vanessa hesitated, then shoved it into his hands like it was beneath her. You're pathetic, she hissed at me. Still clinging to stuff like it means something. I didn't say a word. I just took the watch when the officer handed it back. As she gathered the last of her bags, she paused in the doorway. Her voice dropped, sweet and venomous. Jordan's proposing next month. Thought you should know. I didn't blink. Hope he's better at picking wives than motorcycles. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could say more, Mason appeared from the hallway holding something small in his hand. He walked right up to her and held it out. A photo, the three of us at the lake 2 summers ago. She was smiling in it. So was Mason. I had my arm around them both. I thought you should take this, he said. Her eyes scanned the image, then flicked up at him. Why? So you don't forget what you gave up. She didn't answer. She just walked out the door, the photo still clutched in her hand. And I let it close behind her. Quietly. Completely. 2 days after she left with the officer, I met with my attorney. I brought the file, the same manila envelope Mason had held in his hands. Only now it was fuller. Vanessa hadn't just betrayed us emotionally, she'd left a paper trail wide enough to drive her boyfriend's motorcycle through. My lawyer, Caroline Shaw, had been doing family law for over 20 years. She didn't speak much when I laid it all out on her desk. Just read, scanned, flipped pages, made a few notes. Then she looked up. This is enough to destroy her. It wasn't a threat. Just a fact. I want full custody, I said. And I want to serve her where it hurts. Caroline leaned back in her chair. How do you feel about serving the papers at his place? I smiled. Perfect. The next morning, Vanessa was at Jordan's house, some suburban stucco thing across town with wind chimes and fake grass. She opened the door barefoot, probably expecting Amazon. Instead, a process server handed her the divorce papers and walked away. No conversation. No scene. Just a cold, silent transfer of power. She called me 20 minutes later. I didn't pick up at first, but on the third try I answered. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear it, that little tremble of panic hiding in the corners. Really, Greg? At Jordan's house? You moved your mess there. Thought it made sense. You humiliated me in front of his kids. Good. Now we're even. She was silent for a second. Then you're not getting full custody. I didn't flinch. Already filed. With evidence. With Mason's own words. That's emotional manipulation, she snapped. No, I said calmly. It's the truth. Something you should try once. Another silence. Then, softer. We can work something out. You don't have to do this. I looked out the window, watching Mason shoot hoops alone in the driveway. He wasn't thinking about legal strategy. He just looked lighter. Like something had lifted. You already did it, I said. I'm just finishing the paperwork. She didn't reply. She hung up. And that was the moment I knew, for the first time, Vanessa had no idea what came next. She wasn't the one pulling the strings anymore. She was just one of the loose ends. And I was tying them off, one by one. We needed air. Mason had been quiet all week, doing his homework, feeding the dog, cleaning his room without being asked, like he was scared I'd break next. I wasn't mad at him for it. He was 12. He was doing the best he could with a world that had cracked in half under his feet. So I pulled our old tackle box out of the garage and dusted off the rods. We drove to Willow Lake, the same spot my dad used to take me when life got too loud. The water was still. The dock groaned under our weight like it remembered us. Mason cast first. A decent throw landed just past the reeds. I followed, sitting beside him on the creaky bench, letting the silence do most of the talking. After a while, he spoke. Did she ever love us? I didn't answer right away. I reeled in a bit, watching the bobber drift. I think she loved us, I said finally. But only when it was easy. He didn't move. Just stared at the water. When did it stop being easy? He asked. I sighed. Somewhere between pretending and surviving. He nodded like he understood more than he should. A bird called out from the trees. Mason leaned against me just a little and I let him stay there. We didn't talk much after that. Caught a couple bluegill, threw them back. Ate gas station sandwiches on the tailgate. Laughed when I slipped on the wet dock and nearly dropped my phone in the lake. It wasn't much, but it felt like something real. Something clean. By the time we got home, the sun was dipping low behind the trees. I pulled into the driveway and spotted it right away, a bouquet sitting on the porch. Bright, expensive, wrapped in a glittery pink bow. No note. Mason looked at me. Do you think? Yeah, I said. It's from her. I picked it up, turned it in my hand. Tulips. Her favorite. Then I walked over to the trash bin and dropped it in. Let's order pizza, I said. Mason smiled. Extra pepperoni? You bet. And just like that, the porch was empty again. Just the way it needed to be. It was nearly midnight when the doorbell rang. I was still up, half watching a movie, half checking work emails when the chime broke through the quiet. At first, I thought it might be Mason, maybe a bad dream, needing something. But when I opened the door, she was there. Vanessa. No heels this time. No designer bag. Just sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair in a messy knot and her eyes ringed in shadows. She looked like a stranger standing in my porch light, like someone who had forgotten who she used to be. Greg, she said softly. I didn't move. Didn't say a word. I know I'm the last person you want to see, she started. But I had to come. No, you didn't, I said flatly. She exhaled, shaky. I've been thinking. About everything. About how fast things got messed up. About Mason. About us. I didn't respond. The silence made her squirm. I made mistakes, she said. A lot of them. I was selfish, I know that now. I got caught up in feeling ignored, unloved, like I didn't matter anymore. She took a step forward. I didn't back up, but I made no effort to let her in. I didn't come here to fight, she said quickly. I came to say I'm sorry. And to ask if maybe there's still a chance. A beat passed between us. A long, cold pause. Then I said, what exactly are you asking for? She looked down, then up. To come home. To try again. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I'd played this scene in my head 100 times. Only in my version, I was the one begging. I'm not the one who left, I said. You brought someone else into our house. You made our son feel like a burden. And now what, things aren't working out with Jordan, so you want to hit rewind. She flinched. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said, voice hardening. You didn't come here for closure. You came because reality didn't match your fantasy. Her lip trembled. I just needed to feel seen. Then maybe try a mirror. The words landed like a slap. She turned her face slightly, wiping at her eyes. You used to care, she whispered. I still do, I said. About Mason. About making sure he grows up knowing what real love looks like. But you? You made your choice. I stepped back, resting my hand on the edge of the door. It's already been fixed, I said quietly. What has? I met her eyes. The hole you left? It's better without you in it. And then I closed the door. This time she didn't knock again. I should have known she wouldn't let it end with the door closing in her face. The calm lasted about a week. Then came the email from my attorney. Vanessa Taylor has filed a police complaint alleging emotional abuse within the household, citing mental distress and a hostile environment. She has also requested a temporary visitation halt for Mason pending investigation. I sat there staring at the screen, barely blinking. Hostile environment? Emotional abuse? I knew it was a tactic. A desperate one. She was trying to tip the scales, to paint herself as the victim before the custody hearing. But that didn't make it any less disgusting. I forwarded the message to Caroline. She responded within the hour. She's digging her grave. Don't respond. Just keep documenting. We'll handle it in court. That same day, I got a call from Mason's school. The voice on the line was the assistant principal. Mr. Walker, we need to inform you that Vanessa Taylor approached Mason after school today on campus grounds. What? I stood up from my desk, heart pounding. She was waiting outside the side entrance near the field. One of our teachers saw her talking to Mason and intervened. She left shortly after, but it was reported. We take these incidents seriously, especially with a pending custody matter. I thanked them, got off the call, and checked my phone. Sure enough, Mason had texted me. She grabbed my arm, told me not to believe you. I didn't say anything back. My chest ached. I wanted to drive to her house and scream, but I knew better now. Instead, I texted him back. You did the right thing, buddy. I'm proud of you. We'll handle this. That night, as if to complete the trifecta, she sent me a text. One line. You'll regret this in ways you can't imagine. I stared at it for 10 seconds, took a screenshot, forwarded it to Caroline with the subject line. Her mask is slipping. Then I deleted the message. Not because I wanted to forget it, but because I wasn't giving her space in my phone, my mind, or my future. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about protection. She crossed every line there was. The police, the school, our son. Every move she made was another nail in her own legal coffin. Mason sat beside me later that evening while I reviewed court documents. He didn't say much, just leaned into my side, flipping through his science notes. Is she gonna keep doing this? He asked. I looked at him, steady. Maybe, but it won't work. He nodded slowly. Okay. And then he went back to studying like he trusted me to keep the sky from falling. And I would, because she could throw every accusation in the book at me. But the truth had already picked its side. The courtroom was small, not like the ones you see in movies. No gallery packed with spectators, no dramatic lighting. Just beige walls, rows of chairs, a tired-looking judge, and 2 lawyers with folders thick as bricks. Vanessa sat across from me in a charcoal blazer and pale pink blouse. Her hair curled just enough to look presentable but distressed. Jordan wasn't with her. I heard they'd hit a rough patch, something about money, something about the kids. I didn't care enough to ask for details. Mason was with a child advocate in the adjoining room. He didn't have to testify. Caroline made sure of that. Vanessa's lawyer was the first to speak. He painted a picture with soft colors. A mother seeking stability, overwhelmed by a controlling partner, scared for her child. Vanessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, like clockwork. When the judge looked at me, I didn't say much. Caroline handled the narrative. Calm, precise, no drama, just truth. She handed over the file. The screenshots, the receipts, the text from Vanessa threatening me. The timeline of events, Mason's written statement, the letter from his school. It was clinical, clean, devastating. The judge didn't look impressed with Vanessa's tears, or her lawyer's gentle wordplay. But what sealed it was a single line from Mason's letter, which Caroline read aloud. I don't feel safe with my mom. She says things about me like I'm a problem. But with Dad, I don't have to worry. He just loves me. Silence. Vanessa shifted in her seat. The tissue in her hand suddenly looked like a prop. When it was over, the judge leaned forward, eyes scanning both of us. Given the evidence, the timeline of behavior, and the child's stated wishes, I'm granting full legal and physical custody to Mr. Walker. Ms. Taylor, you will be entitled to supervised visitation, twice a month, contingent upon compliance with family counseling. Bang of the gavel. Just like that, it was done. Vanessa didn't look at me right away. She was still frozen in her chair, staring at the wood grain of the table like it might offer her a way out. As we walked past her toward the exit, she finally turned. This isn't over, she hissed under her breath. I stopped. You're right, I said calmly. You're still the one who has to look in the mirror every morning. Caroline touched my arm. Let's go. We stepped out into the hallway. Mason was waiting, holding his backpack, bouncing his knee like he'd been counting seconds. What happened? He asked. I smiled and crouched down to his level. You're coming home for good. His face lit up. No hesitation, no confusion. Just relief. He hugged me so tight my arms actually ached. In that moment, I didn't feel like I'd won something. I felt like I'd earned it. Outside the courthouse, the sky was gray and heavy. Rain was coming. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't mind. Weeks passed. Vanessa faded from our lives like a shadow that had finally lost the sun. She still existed. We got the occasional court-mandated update, a notice from her therapist, some dull reminder that she was technically still a mother. But in our house, she was gone. That didn't mean she stayed silent. I kept her number blocked, but she left voicemails from new lines, burner phones, borrowed numbers, anything to break through. Some messages were syrupy sweet, pretending nothing had ever happened. I still think about our Sundays. You used to love my pancakes. Others were venom, pure and sharp. You poisoned my son against me. You're pathetic. I never responded. Never once. I played them on speaker once, just so Mason could hear what I was shielding him from. He only shook his head. She still thinks it's about her, he said. He was right. One Sunday afternoon, we were cleaning out the garage, something I'd avoided for years, when Mason found an old photo album, one of the thick leather-bound ones, with clear sleeves and Polaroids jammed in backward. He flipped through it slowly. Pictures of birthdays, lake trips, school plays. Her smile in every one of them. You think she meant any of it? He asked. I leaned over, studied one of the photos, me, her, and Mason at the zoo. His face painted like a tiger, her laughing at something I must have said. I think she meant it when it was easy, I said. But love that only lasts when it's easy. That's not really love. He nodded, then closed the album and placed it in the donation box. Let's go hiking, he said. I want to get out. We drove up to Carter's Ridge, a trail just outside town with a view that stretched forever. Mason carried his own backpack this time, packed his own snacks, led the way like he'd grown years in a matter of months. At the summit, we sat in silence for a while, just breathing. Feels good up here, he said. It does, I agreed. Then he smiled. Better than pancakes. Back home, I noticed something sitting on the porch again. Another bouquet. Same flowers, same ribbon. No note. I picked it up, turned it once in my hands, and tossed it straight in the trash. Mason didn't even ask this time. He just held the door open for me. Inside, the house felt like ours again. Quiet, but not empty. Solid. We didn't need to say anything else that night. We ate spaghetti, watched an old superhero movie, argued over whether Batman or Iron Man would win in a fight. When the credits rolled, Mason said, I'm glad you stayed, you dad. I looked at him and smiled. Me too, kid. And in that silence, real silence, not the kind you fill with pretending, I finally found peace.